Uh, Thank you so much for all of y'all who have joined this session. Indeed, it's a very interesting session. We have seen some really good number of attendees for a very sought after topic of discussion. Of course, Abhishek will agree that we just don't, we do this session on GST, and it's probably the first time that a topic is being taken up as a refresher session, purely because of the number of queries we get on GSTN, GST as an FI type, or as an FIP on AA. And we only think it is appropriate to have a conversation with a larger audience so that everybody gets benefited with this. With GST Live on most of the account aggregators now, it's only the right time to clarify all your doubts that you may have on GST as a data type and as an FIP on account aggregator. So, as always, the session is divided in two parts. So, we will be starting off with a presentation which will be taken up by Abhishek Varshne. Abhishek, as most of you know, is lead partnerships in Sahamati and one of the core subject matter experts on GST within Sahamati. This will be followed up by two TSP spotlight sessions by one by Setu and one by Finbox. The idea is for them to showcase, of course, their solutions for the audience at large, and also to try to and show some, some flow, actual account aggregator flow that they have developed or are thinking of developing. So, without taking any further time, Abhishek, over to you. If you need me for anything, please let me know. Also, for benefit of everybody, let's let Abhishek finish his presentation, and then we can take up the questions after his presentation is done. So that should be good. Okay, Abhishek, over to you.
Thanks, Ruchi, for introducing me. So, hi everyone, very warm welcome to all of you. And I understand that it's a Friday evening, second half, getting time becomes a challenge. But still, we'll try that the session remains informative, and we wind up the call as per the schedule. So I'd like to start by congratulating the whole ecosystem participants who have worked closely on bringing GSTN live as FIP on account aggregator framework. It's a big win for all of us and has a huge impact in terms of financial inclusion also. Uh, I will not say that GST data was not available before, but the way uh, the GST data will be available through it's more of seamless digital way where consented information is getting flowed. So that's a very pathbreaker thing. Plus, on account aggregator, the feature of recurring consent is something which is unique to itself. Uh, so data availability was one of the major challenge which a account aggregator is bringing is getting the consolidated data which through different FIPs and making it available for the FIUs for the use. So I think India is at a inflection point why the building up of new DPIs and also we are seeing a huge tremendous growth in terms of business numbers. There is a very positive sentiment in terms of the GDP growth, plus the portfolios are behaving in a very, there are great signals towards the portfolio growth, and also the good economic growth are contributing to a new India development of bringing in new development India. So also the government is pushing very hard in terms of things which we can do, which can achieve financial inclusion. And I think account aggregate is one of the platform which can enable credit to reach to the masses. So one of the report, referring to one of the report which said the UK Senate committee report says that the MSME the credit gap or the credit demand in MSME is around 20 to 25 lakhs crore. And the other report which I recently read about from Sydney side, it said that there are around 6.3 crore MSME which are currently there, and by this year end, we will have around 7.5 crore MSMEs, which will overall have around 5 crore MSMEs which are new to credit. And these ecosystem on a large scale can actually help enable credit reach to these particular segments, and we are obviously seeing a change shift in terms of customer persona, which is getting into MSME side. We are seeing a lot of women participation coming in. We are seeing a lot of new businesses coming in, and also seeing traction from tier 2, tier 3 cities. This will all drive the business and credit growth in the ecosystem. So not taking much of the time, I'll quickly switch to the presentation. And we have divided the whole presentation into two parts. I'll give you a run through a ecosystem update, and then we'll deep dive into GSTN as FIP on account aggregator. So account aggregator is, in a simple language, when I try to say it, it is nothing but, I can say that it is a consent manager or agent. You can say a agent of the customer, which is responsible for getting data from financial information providers and share this data on when given consent to the financial information users. The beauty of this whole ecosystem is all the parties which are involved are regulated entities. So the FIPs and FIUs are regulated. It can be one of the entity which are regulated by any of one of the four FSRs, maybe SEBI, PFRDA, RBI, and IRDA. So currently on FIP side, we have seen banking data which is there, mutual fund depository data. Now GST is another data which has gone live, insurance, NPS data which are live. So all of these data can be pulled by through account aggregators, and there are several multiple use cases which are coming up. Majorly, it is focused towards lending, but we will soon see many of the use cases coming from sachet loan products or small ticket size insurances coming, because this data can be enabled seamlessly through account aggregator framework. The current state of account aggregator uh, uh, tells you we are around 15.66 million successful data being shared across through account aggregator framework. The monthly growth rate is 27%, and there are around 1.13 billion accounts which can be linked through account aggregator. So there are 51 banks which are currently live on account aggregator, and if we want to link any of those data or the bank accounts through account aggregator, it can be linked. So the count currently is around 1.13 billion, which are where the account aggregator can be enabled. Uh, the true nature of account aggregator is it is cross-sectoral in nature, right? And we have around 86 financial information providers covering all the private public sector banks, major all big private sector banks, RRBs. We are working very closely with Cooperative Bank. Soon we will see Cooperative Bank getting onboarded on account aggregator. This is a pilot project which NABARD is doing right now. We have 13 AMCs and depositories which are already live. Now GST has gone live in last month end. The major use cases are, as I told you, it's coming from the lending side. Majorly, companies are using it for personal loan, home loans, auto loans, MSMEs, education loans. And the other use case is coming from while transferring the money and onboarding customer, you are ensuring that the bank account verification is being properly done and the money which is going is to the right customer. And you're taking the money when we talk about getting money from the customer, you are ensuring the customer you're onboarding as the same customer from where the money is coming. So no third party transactions, ensuring that no third party transaction happens in the through A. So there are 249 financial information users currently, which majorly coming from HFCs, NBFCs, and banks. The other use cases come from the demat account opening, bank account verification, and pension account fund, which contribute. We have started seeing uptake in terms of insurance companies taking use of account aggregator in terms of evaluating customer. Side, you can underwrite customers through bank statement, which currently there are other means of taking the bank statements. So number of account aggregator which are live on which have a operating license are 12 right now, and another 5 which are in pipeline who have in principle offers. So going deep on how GSTN data will be available, how you can link, etc. I'll just take you through the current state of GSTN. So there are around 7 account aggregators which are live with GSTN as FIP, and we have started seeing some early adopters from NBFC and banks, which are at the initial stage of testing how this data can be utilized by them and different loan journeys and different financial products. So as I told you before, UK Sena MSME committee estimated that there is around 20-25 lakh crore uh, potential MSME lending gap, and the latest report by SIDBI tells you that there's a 5 crore new NTC customers which are available, which will come by this year end. So it's a huge market opportunity for any lender or any financial institute to cater to. By GST going live on A, actually, we are expecting around 13.8 million registered taxpayers. They can avail cash flow based lending, and a strategic shift can come from collateral, or from a thought process of collateral based lending to a cash flow based lending. This is the available data. So I have been a lender for myself for a decade, and I understand majorly there are bunch of problem which while onboarding a customer with any lender faces, and one of them, uh, three, four of them is are like, first of all, is lack of data. That was a huge challenge for anybody. Second challenge was, even if I want to give personalized offer and get more data on the customer and give and understand him more better, but it was so difficult to analyze and get this data from different sources, because uh, getting data was a friction, full of friction. The process was full of friction because the customer has to reach out to different portal, log in through mobile, through their user ID, password. It was not a This was a hassle process. So everybody wanted, from a FIU or lender perspective, they always wanted that we should be able to analyze customer with the minimum data, and that was a big challenge. I think account aggregator is positioned in such a way that these both the problem have been answered very flawlessly in terms of getting the data directly from source on a real time basis and in a frictionless manner. The customer can give you consent and the data is available. Plus, the beauty of the product is it's like a recurring consent can be taken, where you can keep on monitoring the customer and handhold the customer at the right time when he's about to get default, or maybe guide him and provide him education. These are the 2 points which were addressed by account aggregator, which can be addressed by account aggregator. The other 2 point was, I always seen saturation building up on the from a lender perspective in tier one cities, where everybody was trying to get the same customers. Now with the availability of data, you can actually reduce the risk and can cater to the customer much informed manner because of availability of data. So it will result into companies getting into more offering small ticket size zones, sachet products, and they can earn more ROA and reduce CAC through this mechanism. So these are the other two things. When you talk about funnel optimization, I've seen the conversion rates in a single digit. That was so poor. Now companies are thinking how this cross sectoral data coming from account aggregator they can utilize and increase the funnel, eventually benefiting the company. And also, while you offer a personalized offer to the customer, it is a benefit for the customer also. Going into more depth, these are the common questions we keep on hearing, like who can share the data, what is the scope of data, what is the time period for which the data can be shared, how recurring one-time consent can be taken, and also then I'll give you a glance of how the customer gets onboarded on A for a GST flow. And meanwhile, we have TSP presentation, which will give you more insight, and they will take you to the Figmas and demos they have prepared, which then you can relate it. So who can share the data? All regular taxpayers whose status is active. When the details are shared, they can share the data. The other question which we are asked that is, will partnership firm or private limited company or corporate company can share the data, GST data? Yes, they can share the data in GST while GSTN as a FIP. But the mobile authentication happens through primary authorized signatory. So wherever whosoever number gets updated, seeded in the GSTN record, he will get the OTP while during the linking process. So the discovery in GSTN happens through the mobile number of primary authorized signatory plus the PAN number of the company. So what is all data is available. So we have GSTR1 and we have GSTR3B data and return and basic profile of the customer, which are available right now through. as GSTN as FIP, and GSTR 1 gives you a monthly or quarterly statement of output supply. GSTR 3B gives you monthly and quarterly self-declared income. What is not available is you don't get any other table in GSTR 1 apart from table 4. You don't get GSTR 2A and other GSTRs. Also, the counterparty GSTN IN will be masked right now, but we have the recommendation has been made and it's kind of approved that soon this buyer GSTN will be unmasked and this data will come in. And RBI, so the Rapid will release their next schema which will have this change. So that will come soon. One of the question we are asked frequently is on e-invoice data, that will it be available or not. So yes, it will be available, but it will be available for the completed return period in last 18 months. So, and one of the identifier, if you pull a data, you will surely get, if you get IRN number or IRN generation date or the source type as e-invoice, this can be one of the identifier that this is a e-invoice which was filed. No real-time e-invoices will be given. So getting to more depth, how GSTR1 data can be used. This GSTR1 is monthly or quarterly statement of all the output supplies. It helps you to estimate the past and future cash flow of MSMEs and also gives you a sense of stability of the customer. Also, through this data, the lenders can underwrite the invoices which pass through their rule engine, and they can do invoice discounting and other products, etc. GST 3B gives you a monthly and quarterly self-declared summary of GST return. This will help you to overall get the aggregated turnover of the taxpayer and also gives you a summary figure of input tax credit claim, net tax payable, and sales. Return filing details. This data point can be used as a kind of surrogate where it tells about the discipline of the taxpayer while he's paying the government taxes on time. It can be an indicator of the how the loan repayment, how the track of loan repayment can be done. Basic profile details you get it from GST, like the legal name, addresses, and PAN of the customer. Since account aggregator enables sharing of data from different FI types, the same data will be coming from different FI types, and the lenders or the FIUs can actually triangulate that whatever the customer has given as input to your system versus what you are getting on GST and banking side maybe. So is it matching or not? It can be trust signals, or you can say as a fraud signals can be taken consideration. Major use cases, what we have heard, comes from lending, insurance, and investment advisory firms. So from a lending perspective, while you onboard, so in terms of underwriting, you understand that it's like you want to know the vintage of the customer. They are already existing GST surrogates through which you can calculate the tentative in what is the income of the customer. You also, since you get how long the GST has been registered, you get a sense of how the time from which he's actually doing business. And in terms of getting the invoice level data, you can actually see month on month business being done by him. So that also gives comfort from a lender's perspective. While, as I discussed, that AA facilitate recurring fetch, while you have onboarded the customer initially till the time when account aggregator was not there versus the era where account aggregator is there now. Now lender is expecting that they start taking recurring consent from the customer, which will enable them to monitor customer on a regular basis. Initially, right now and prior to account aggregator era, people were relying for the macroeconomics indicators plus the scrubbing which we used to do from a bureau. This was the way you were used to analyze your portfolio, but now account aggregator can give you that sense of what the current state of customer if you have the consent from the customer. So very good early warning signals can be developed. And similarly, this all data can be ingested in your data analytics model and give you a better offering so that you can pass on that advantage if the customer is better position in terms of financial repayment capability. You can offer him a more personalized offer and you can take care of him. Similarly, insurances. One initial use cases come from the term insurances where we have seen that market is skewed towards salaried customers, and one of the basic reason which insurers states that uh, because of lack of data availability, they are not able to underwrite the SENP customer. with GST on board, they can actually get a sense of the business, what is the income level and etc. of customer, through which they can underwrite the customer and give him the best offer in terms of term insurance. Also, they can get a sense of how long he has been doing business and what is the stability of the customers. That is another indicator which can be made use of. Also heard of in terms of general insurance, when you understand, when you want to get insight on what is the kind of stock which he is maintaining, what are the sales he is doing, you can actually take advantage of pulling this data and understanding and marrying it with the kind of insurance you want to give to him in terms of property insurance or stock insurance, etc. Advisory side, we have come across the use case where so the advisory, the automated, so the product which are available, they kind of categorize customer into different formats. So in terms of which customer to cater to, they will, and if they have some certain offering which caters to a particular profile of the customer, GST data can give them an insight on that what kind of profile this customer is. And also I've if there are, while fetching the GST data, if they get to know that there is certain amount of money which is pending, which will come in another 60 days in terms of returns. So they can suggest some advisory, how can he utilize that data and give the customer more insight around his investments. So these are some of the use cases which companies are trying across lending, insurance, and investment advisory. So coming on to point where it tells about what period data will be available. So GST data is available for last 18 months data, and this data is available when for the complete return period. So for example, we have considered an example which says if you are asking for a data from 8th of February 2022 to 7th of January 2023. So the if the filing frequency is monthly, so he will only get the data from the month of March to the month of December, because those are the completed months. So it would be n+1 and n-1 kind of thing. And if it is a quarterly filing, we will get three returns, which will be from April to June, July to September, and October to December. Because Jan is not completed, we will take n-1 month. So in that case, this is how the data can be pulled, and this 18 months is something which you can pull the data at one go. So coming, like we discussed on one time and recurring fetch. So fetch frequency should be aligned to the return filing frequency of the taxpayer. And you can actually get if the customer has given you consent, you can keep on pulling the data till the time your product is live. One more point which gets highlighted is what is the data packet size which can flow from the from the GSTN side to the FIUs. So the data packet limit is kept at 5 MB. This is kept by assuming that average invoice of 1 KB, which will lead to 18 invoices a month, and eventually talking about any company, the taxpayers with annual turnover of around 100 crores. I think 99% of the total taxpayers will not have more than 4 MB of packet size while this data comes from GST and other FIP. So majority of the data packet should not be an issue. So the data packet size is kept at 5 MB in this current regime. Coming on to how the process of discovery happens. So discovery happening using the combination of two identifiers, which is mobile number and primary authorized signatory and PAN number of the GST taxpayer. Once you enter it, you will be shown different GSTNs which are linked to this uh, identifier of PAN and GST taxpayers. And similar to how bank account discovery happens, once it is discovered, you can select the one GSTINs which you want to share, and then you will move forward where the FIP, which is GSTN, will share you a OTP to authenticate linking. Once you fill up the OTP, the linking is done, and then you migrate to the consent page where different parameters will be shown to you on the consent artifact as per the consent artifact, and you have to give your approval, and this is how the consent is given. how GST, how this has changed from an old regime uh, where while fetching the GST data, you have to actually initially log into the GSTN portal and give the consent, or also the taxpayer doesn't need to in this account aggregator framework. You don't need to actually give opt-in or enable any API. You can just go through the flow which I just stated. So hence it is more of a seamless and frictionless process. So these are the parameters which are key element of electronic consent artifact. The fetch type is one time or periodic, which you can do. In consent type, profile, summary, and transaction. Uh, so GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B becomes a part of transaction, and the basic profile and return filing becomes a type of what part of profile. FI types are GSTR 1 underscore 3B, and identifier is GSTN FIP here. Account type is default. Like you get and when you at a time of discovery, uh, in this the pan is hidden, and when you do a discovery call, the GSTIN pen is hidden, and the first two and last three digits are open. You can see it as we have showed you an example here. The purpose code can be any of the purpose code which aligns to your use case, and from and to date as per the customer consent which he's given. So these are the common queries which we keep on getting from the market, and we try to give answer to it. So would the same account aggregate integration that has been undertaken by all the institute be applicable for the GST framework or a fresh set of integration will be have to be done? So the same integration will work. So, but some of the tweaking would be required on AA screen, wherein they will have to enable GSTN as a FIP. And initially on the banking side, only mobile number validation was there. Now you have to actually build a UI which asks for customer PAN and mobile number both. Also, from a FIU point of view, the data which they are getting, they have to ensure that this data gets ingested into LOS. So some tweaking on a LOS side will have to happen. Is it mandatory to provide banking data to complete GST flow? No, it is not. The linking is not required. These are both independent journeys. If you want to, if the FIU wants to only have GST flow, they can only enable GST. If they want to have both, they both can be done on a single consent page. Will Whether all AAs will have access to the GSTN for fetching the data? So GST proposed to go live with all account aggregator. Currently, there are around 7 account aggregator which are live with GST. Would current account be included as a part of discovery? So 51 banks are live on account aggregator. FIPs can share singly held proprietor account through AAs, and non-sole proprietor account are not available right now. How the consent be managed with AA and GST? And will a single consent be taken for saving account and GST? Is it possible even today? The citizen can select FI type as GS deposit and GSTR for multiple FI and even for multiple FIP for giving consent and in a single tap. Is there any charges proposed by GSTN for sharing the data? As on today, there are no charges proposed by any FIP for sharing the data. What if the user selected wrong GST of other state? What are the alternative with us to restart the journey? The first two digits of GSTINs represent the GST state code. There you can translate a GST state code to a state name and display it to the taxpayer along with GSTIN to minimize error. But still, if there is an error which comes in, the taxpayer can actually go back and again restart the journey. So these are the other questions which we have kind of answered during our presentation. Maybe we can open up for another for any question answers.
Abhishek, there are some questions in the chat box. You might want to take it up. So, if anyone has any further questions, you can put it up on the chat box, and Abhishek will try to answer as much as possible.
Is Shalini there on the call?
Second.
Rahul? Well, need their help.
Yeah, yeah. Hi,
Hi, Abhishek.
Abhishek, I'm there on the call. We can
Yeah.
start. I think we can just pick up the questions and
Yeah, Abhishek, you can stop sharing your screen so
Acha, sorry.
you can get started.
yeah. So Ruchi, would you read the questions? Maybe it will become easier for us to answer. How do we? Or we'll pick up the questions. Wait.
Yeah, it's in the chat box at the bottom.
Yeah. So what is meant by primary authorized signatory, and is it mostly CAs accountants who filed those GST? So yeah.
Sorry, Shalini. The first question is, how is the data protected using encryption? It's right at the top.
Acha,
Yes.
I scrolled from below. So the data is protected. This is as per the Rabbit prescribed encryption standards, and all this data is available. The encryption standards are as prescribed by Rabbit, and anyone who wishes to see it and implement account aggregator framework will have to use the same set of encryption measures that have been given by Rabbit for everyone. So we can share the link of Rabbit's website with you, and you can go through it. Right? I don't think this is a forum to get into the encryption standards, but we can share the right details with you. Yeah, the next is I heard data is coming in 10 minimum batches. So how will it be? No, the data will come in a single batch. For the last 18 months, you'll get the data in a single batch. There is no breaking up of data which is proposed for GSTN.
So I think why he's asking is on UAT, we were doing a batch-wise process. So that was just for UAT, and production it is like.
Okay. Yeah. So if there are multiple GSTs, all will reflect in single login, and will multiple OTPs will be received? No, the login will be only so you'll just need to, the customer will need to enter only one OTP from GST for all GSTNs that have been discovered against a single combination of mobile number and PAN. So once you enter, the customer enters his mobile number and PAN, all GSTNs linked with this combination will be displayed to the customer, and when he has to link, he'll get a OTP once from GSTN to give a linking authorization. So it's not multiple OTPs for each GSTN. Yeah, so the consent at the time of onboarding suffice to avoid recurring consent for monitoring or for monitoring another consent. So no, these two consents are separate, and they have to be taken as two different consents, one for a one-time consent for underwriting and a recurring consent for loan monitoring. And ideally, we, as a best practice, we suggest that the monitoring consent should be taken at the time of disbursement. And because otherwise you'll end up taking a lot of recurring consent for customers you don't finally disburse a loan. But there are discussions going on how to optimize the journey to ensure that the recurring consent is available to the lender at the time of underwriting, or at least assurance of getting a recurring consent approval is there. But as of now, we suggest that it should be taken at just before the time of disbursement. So Abhishek, I think you can take up the questions. I'll leave it to you. Anything you want my help in, I'll be there. Yeah.
So the deck will get shared. We will have we will put it up. Even the recording of the session will get shared in the days to come. We will put it up on our website and we will socialize it.
So the next question is what is means by primary authorized signatory? It is mostly CAs. Yes. So whosoever number is feeded on the GSTN portal, and you can consider it the guy who actually files and gets OTP is a primary authorized signatory. So if it is CA numbers, then you have to actually get OTP from them. If the CA is doing your filing.
Hello.
Yeah, Rahul.
Yes, just to clarify, see, primary authorized signatory can only be one. OTP process and the primary authorized signatories are both different in GST. So you can add multiple signing authorities in the GST, but when you are doing that, you can only keep one primary authorized signatory. So in the GST, in the AA flow, the PAN number of the authorized signatory and the mobile number of that person. And if he is having a multiple company registered with his own PAN number, I mean, he is a primary authorized signatory for multiple GSTN or maybe multiple company, all of these will be discovered and will be available. Right, Salini? I think my understanding is correct.
Right.
Yeah. So it can be
Only
CA. I mean, it's all depend that when the GST registration taken place, that time they mentioned the primary authorized signatory as the chartered accountant or maybe the accountant of that particular organization. But usually is the company owner, founder, or the I mean, they only be the primary authorized signatory.
Yeah, thanks, Rahul. Yeah.
only those GSTNs will be shown which matches both. Yes, this is. Will there be multiple OTPs involved for multiple consented GSTN? I think we answered this. So if the PAN and mobile number matches give you a discovery of different GSTNs, you can actually select them, and on a single OTP you can share the data.
The only thing is this is not for consenting, this is for linking. So for consenting anyhow, there is no OTP involved. So I mean, to correct the question itself, it is for linking multiple GSTNs to account aggregator handle. Only one OTP will be sent by GST to the the taxpayer whose GSTNs are discovered using a particular combination of PAN and mobile number. So whatever he is inputted basis that, he can link it with a single OTP.
Are you covering the demo? So we will cover it by this will be covered by the TSPs. We'll just start the session after this, taking up all the questions. How to revoke the recurring consent. So maybe while you have onboarded on any account aggregator, you create a handle with that account aggregator. And if you log into the account aggregator app, you can actually see what all permissions you have given, where all the data has been shared, and then that is one of the process you can revoke it. And similarly, FIUs can also request AS to revoke the consent if they want. Can we get GST certificate, GST registration 6 PDF? What I'm not able to understand this.
So what is available is what we have already told. So maybe Rahul, if you can explain this, because this is, I think, outside the scope of GSTR 1 and 3B. And so this is, if you're referring to the registration data, the profile data that is being made available through account aggregator. So if you could just elaborate what exactly does this mean?
Ravi or
Ravi, if Ravi is
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So yeah. So basically, I want to know if we get the certificate of registration, the GST form through this. So you mentioned key we get the name and the details of the businesses, but do we get the actual PDF form also if we
No.
no?
Only the data fields that are we mentioned as a part of the profile that will be made available, but not the form in a PDF format.
Got it. Sure. Thank you.
any roadmap on GSTR 2B being shared?
GSTR 2A. So this is, I think this has been, a representation has been made to Ministry of Finance and Department of Revenue and even GSTN, because lenders believe that this will be really powerful in completing their analysis and, doing a net cash flow analysis, and also do purchase side funding for MSMEs. So we hope, I mean, right now there is no clarity on when this will be implemented, but we'll keep making representations to the relevant stakeholders, and hopefully this should come in.
Can someone explain the synergic role of TSPs, AAs in the OCEAN framework from an LSP borrowing agent journey? Maybe Finbox can take this. Yes.
So I would think this is actually outside the scope of the current thing, but as suggested in the question itself, we'll take it up separately and we'll answer this. It will be interesting.
Will it be a real-time data?
Yeah, it is. So account aggregator, the data is real time, but like we explained in GST, it will be synchronized with the return filing period. So it won't be real time in the sense that if you're in the middle of a month and the return filing period ended, it ends at the end of, so basically if you are, let's say today we are at 18th August, and if you request for data, it will be given to you by the end of previous month. if you're a monthly return, if you're in a monthly return filing cycle. So
Yeah.
it's not real time in that sense, because otherwise, like what you get in bank statement, it is linked to your return filing period.
Yeah, so my question, Aryan here. So my question was, because in our DIY journeys, we get all the GSTR 3B and 1 and 2 in real time, right? In current context, when we does it without AA. So I'm okay with that if the latest month data is not coming. But the question is that all the 12 months data, right, starting, let's say, if it is 18th August, let's say till 31st July, is that data coming in real time so that we can generate the offer and show it to customer?
Yeah, it will come in real time, and it can be so, like the way you today getting bank statement through AA. I mean, whatever is the fetch time, a similar time we can expect for a GST data to be pulled in. So it's real time.
Okay.
We'll. I think there are some SLAs or time latency which we have agreed with GST, and we can share that with you separately. But it is real time. I mean, you can generate real time offers if that is.
Yeah, that is the main point basically, because we do generate it real time right now. If we replace it by A, we'll be able to generate or not.
Yeah,
So yeah, thank you.
certainly.
So in this point, I also want to mention, if this is a quarterly filing, right? And we are in a month of August. So we will get a 1 month back data, right? So it
Yeah,
will
we
be
need data only till
till
June for
June.
that. Yeah.
Data set for each GST will be provided separately. Will there also be aggregation of the date of all GSTN by A itself?
Which question is this?
Namrata has asked, data set for each GST will be provided separately.
So basically, my question is, if multiple GSTs are selected, will we be getting data corresponding to each of the GST separately, or will it be combined? And if it's separately, then will we also get the combined data?
No, so the data, GSTN will provide the data separately, Namrata, but I think this functionality can be offered by your TSP, where the data is shared by GST for separate GSTNs, but the TSP can aggregate it and give it to the FIU for their consumption. So typically,
Understood.
I would say that you'll have to work with your TSP to build the aggregation facility.
Understood. Thank you so much.
The next question for GSTR 3B, types like sales deviation, GSTR 1 and 3B, or number of days delay were not defined. We are using some of them in underwriting. Also, types which are available, their data is bifurcated between details of outward supplies, inward supplies, liable for invoice charge, supplies notified under Section 9(5) CGST Act, value of exempt, nil, and non-GST. Though in the Excel, these two sheets cover return details and customer GSTN details, but in none of the sheet they are capturing customer return finding type, which is an important parameter for running credit policy. For GSTR 1, aggregates were not defined, only invoice level data is available.
So this, I think we can ask Rahul to help us with this question, if he can throw some light, or if it is something which we need to discuss separately, we can do that. Rahul, would
Yeah,
you like
hello.
to answer?
Yeah. So I think Arun, they are using some service which is giving them some kind of an enriched form of the data which is available from the GST, in that the sales deviation of the GSTR 1 and 3B, and maybe the number of details and all which he is asking. So
Oh,
here we will take the raw data. We will in the A we will only receive the raw data, which needs to be enriched by the TSP to get some kind of an derived form of from the 3B what he is asking for. But data points will be available. Number of days delay, you will get the date of filing. You will not get the days of delay. But when the GSTR 3B has been filed, that needs to be taken care at the GSP level, at the TSP level.
can everyone put themselves on mute, please? Yeah, Arun. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and in the section which he's talking about the bifurcations, currently GSTR 3B, all of these details which he's asking will be available. Values of the exempted, nil rated, non-GST, or the section of A and B, detail of outward supply, inward supply, liable to reverse charge and all. That will be part of the output currently as a part of the GSTR 3B transaction level data. And for the GSTR1 aggregates where invoice level data will be available, yes, as a part of the table number 4, which will be available. Not other than table number 4 will be part of that output.
Okay. So does it answer your question, Arun?
Sure. I got it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What if the signing authority wants to get a loan basis the GST data, but is not the primary authorized signatory for that company? Right now, GSTN FIP is not discovering the primary authorized numbers at all. Okay. So if we can break it into two sections, like if a company wants a loan and he's on the application, he can obviously request the primary authorized signatory to give OTP and PAN. Through PAN linking, he can actually request the data.
See, this was designed to simplify the process of giving consent on GSTN. I mean, at the end of it, no process will be optimal, but the idea was to say that we should not exclude and get into the same complication we have on the banking data, where we've not been able to operationalize non-sole current accounts because you've got multiple stakeholders who need to give a consent. The idea was to say, let's keep it simple and let's have the primary authorized signatory be the one to give consent while doing a loan journey. We can look once the system stabilizes and we scale up and we see that there are other options which are of high value, and we may end up excluding a lot of customers. If that is not implemented, we can take that up. But as of now, the idea was to keep the journey simple and include as many customers as possible using the AA framework. That's what I've understood here, because right now, the entire journey is focused on primary authorized signatories whose mobile number is seated in the GSTN as the one who is running the entire journey. So we could think of it as the easiest to implement.
Shalini, hi, Ravi here from ICICI Prudential. Yeah, some basic questions in respect with GSTR 2A, 3B versus 456, the other forms which we have in GST. So do we see, as per our earlier discussion, it was understood that we will not be getting GSTR 2A, which is the actual declaration given in by the customer, but in comparison, we will get in 3B and the other subsequent form. So whether, my two questions is whether the 2A is factored with this integration, or still we will have to wait, and what about the other forms and other declaration which the customer made in their respective GSTR declaration in respect with GSTR 9, 9C, 10, 8B as on?
See, as of now, Ravi, the approach, Ministry of Finance has taken and GSTN has taken is we will operationalize minimum data that is required by lenders to serve the majority of the MSME market. So the idea is to say that, let's operationalize that use case. As of now, there is no visibility on when other information FI types will be made available, other tables from GSTR. The only one which is under discussion is GSTR 2A, because there has been, I know that there have been certain representations made to Ministry of Finance from FIUs for operationalizing that form. So we are hopeful that that may get operationalized. But the other tables which you have been which you've mentioned, like 4, 5, 6, and 9 others are nowhere under consideration currently. So we'll have to, if there is a very solid and a very strong use case where the industry believes that getting more GST data will be useful for them to serve a larger segment or make their underwriting models stronger. I mean, it has to be a strong use case. If it is there, then what we can do is we can, once the current system stabilizes, we can again go back to GSTN and Department of Revenue with a representation saying that, the phase 1 has worked properly. Now the pilot is successful, lenders are making loans on the currently available data via account aggregator. Why don't you just kind of add a few more tables to it to make it even stronger? So the idea was to say that let's take a phased approach, and that's what is happening currently. But they'll be open to opening up more as and when they start seeing numbers from the existing utility.
Okay. Okay.
So can we have a sample data set? We can share you the XML after the call.
How much time do we have, Abhishek?
5 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So can the FIU become FIP? Can the FIU tamper the data? How is data tampering mitigated?
I am not clear on this question. How can the FIU temper data? The FIU is the consumer of the data. So why would they temper the data? If they temper it, that's a fraud which the FIU needs to contain at their end, right?
So, Shalini, one more question from my side, Ravi here.
Yeah,
So,
Ravi.
as a customer, if you want to use the bank statement of an customer, including their investment details and GST details all together, so how many requests will the customer will have to place? It would be whether it would be only a one single request, or it would be a multiple integrations or multiple intervention from the customer side to fetch all the details from through this AA portal.
So Ravi, what will happen is that, like we explained at the linking part, when the customer is linking their accounts to the account aggregator handle, at that point, if they, let's say, want to link their bank account with HDFC Bank, GSTN data, and their AMC data from one of the RTAs, they will have to enter 3 OTPs. So they'll get 3 linking authorization requests from each of the 3 FIPs. But once they have entered the OTP and their accounts are linked and they authorize the linking of these accounts, that's a one-time process. After that, if they have to give consent to share data from each of these 3 accounts, they can, these 3 consents can be shown. So they are different consents, but for the customer, it can be shown on a single screen, and the customer can give the consent in a single tap, and they will have an option to, leave out any account they don't want to share the data for, or give the consent for all 3 accounts together with a single tap. So what I mean to say is that the linking process will still be, for each FIP, but the consent can be given in a single tap through a single screen for the customer. Does that answer your question, Ravi?
It's partially answered because I was having a different say I was looking from a customer angle, from a customer touch point, because see, as and when now, since a ecosystem we are also driving and ministry is also driving a ecosystem, and since customer are also getting some, not majority of the customer, but those who are getting that information, they are raising the point that since it is the same ecosystem which we are using right now, so as a linking platform also, we should be having one single linking way. For example, I select the multiple details and then I linked it through a single OTP is what we are getting as a suggestion. But I do understand these are different FIPs who are,
they are responsible for the data of the customer, and they need to ensure that the linking is indeed being authorized by the customer. Otherwise, the customer can tomorrow come and say that, when did I authorize you to share the data?
True.
That's where it is.
But Ravi, I will also want to bring to your notice that this we have to look at on a different angle. Like this is the first time activity once you have to link it with a handle. But if you have already linked it in coming times, once the awareness is there with the customer, every customer will prefer to have a single handle because there are 15 different FI types which are available, and he will not like to go create handle with another A and again link it. So this is a one-time activity which like we have done it in the UPI also. And once this is done, again, when you are onboarding the customer for any other financial product, it can be on the fly, you can give it, and there is no OTP required for linking each FI types.
No,
we have
got
to
it,
look at that particular angle. So
yeah,
I
but
think
see, I do understand because these were some of the few suggestions now which we have received from our customers. So we were just putting it into the same forum so that if in case when we are thinking it through, we should look at that angle also as well, because as and when things will grow further, these suggestions will come from customers. So that's the reason only putting it to the phone.
No, so in fact, Ravi, what will happen is increasingly we'll also need to be aware of the
Yeah, true.
security
That's
risk. So, you've seen UPI is also migrated to a two-factor authorization. So, I don't know, at the time of linking, so we will
yeah,
have
yeah,
to
no
see
issue.
how
Yeah.
A will evolve as we move
No
forward.
issue, no issue, no issue. No
Thank
issue.
you. I mean, thanks for sharing the suggestion. Any feedback from the customer is always welcome.
Yeah, true.
So I think it's time when maybe the other question we can revert it through a mail, but we can start with our TSP spotlight.
Yeah.
So for all the other questions, we request you all to write to info@sahamati.org.in. We will just type it in the chat box, and your questions will get answered in the coming days.
Okay.
Thank you, Shalini. Thank you, Abhishek.
Thanks.
Yes. So hope this was beneficial, and you can always get in touch with anybody in Sahamati for any queries. Now let's move on to TSP Spotlight. The interesting part of having a spotlight session in the Pragati sessions, in the new data type discussions in our forum, is TSPs usually what they propose in their sessions is a call to action, especially for new FIUs and FIPs. So all that you hear in the presentations actually gets, you get an opportunity to see it getting implemented and get an opportunity to hear from experts on how they can actually get it implemented for you. So, without any further ado, I will request the first technology service provider, which is Setu, to come on board and start their presentation. Ron Sebastian from Setu, who is a product manager, especially for account aggregator, will be sharing his solutions with the audience. So please stay put for the next half an hour, and after that we have another TSP. Right? So Ron, are you
Hey,
there?
hey, Richi. Ron is here with me. I'll be co-sharing the screen with Ron, and we'll be getting started with the quick demo.
Okay, 1
I
minute.
think so. We're good, right? Can we get started?
Please share your screen and get started.
Yeah, sure. I would just basically want to get started by thanking everyone at Samati for providing us this platform to display the capabilities of what Setu and the entire ecosystem can achieve by having GSTN as an financial information provider. Also, a big kudos to everyone involved in this, specifically Samati, GSTN, Ministry of Finance, RBI, for pulling this off. We at Setu are very optimistic on what these possibilities can be done on having GST as an FIP in the business world and the business lending space. So we'll quickly move on by having a quick demo of what exactly we are doing and how we are looking at GST as an FIP in the ecosystem. Just give me a minute. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can, Pawan.
Awesome. So before we deep dive into the demo, right, I just want to give context about what we are doing on WhatsApp and why I'm displaying a screen on WhatsApp here. So going back in time from last few years, Setu has been very optimistic and bullish on how WhatsApp as an ecosystem has thrived in India and how exactly more than 15 to 20 million SMEs have been part of this ecosystem, doing business on WhatsApp, having commerce on WhatsApp. Mostly like 40 to 50% of Indian population also does actively converse on WhatsApp. So we had this hypothesis that why not just extend this platform to have more penetration for financial services, and lending definitely happens to be one. The piece of flow that I'll be showing here on screen would be one of the flows that we are already live with few of our lending partners. Now here the GSTN was a missing piece for actually lending on WhatsApp through GSTN as an FIP for account aggregator. But now with that going live, the entire piece is sorted and the journey becomes much more seamless and efficient. And we are doing this within 1 to 10 minutes of range, where we can actually disperse a loan to a business in that duration. So we'll quickly get started with the demo on how exactly the things happen and how the journey works. So we start with taking the consent of the users and asking whether it's the right mobile number from where he is initiating it. Both the sides of the journey are valid. Either the customer can reach out to the lender to avail a loan, or lender can just push a notification on WhatsApp if he wants to understand if the borrower wants to have a loan facility extended. So once the customer confirms his mobile number, we quickly take him through the consent screen where he'll be sharing his consent to GSTN as well as bank to avail the lending facility. Let me quickly move you guys to the AA lending screen in a short duration of time. I'll just switch to mobile view for easy viewing purposes. So the customer will quickly log into the account aggregator to share his consent to log into both GSTN as well as bank account details. We spoke with a lot of lenders to understand how exactly the lending on GSTN as well as a business lending works. And as Shalini as well had mentioned, right, the fusion of data being provided to a lender, which is a combination of banking data as well as GSTN, is one of the powerful modes of underwriting in business lending. And that is where Setu has been actually working to facilitate this data transfer very actively. So with a couple of OTPs to enter into account aggregator, the user logs into the account aggregator ecosystem.
When the screen hasn't moved. So after the yes.
Sorry. Is it moved now? Sorry for the delay.
Yeah, we see the linking screen now.
Perfect. Yeah. So the customer has provided already the details and we have passed it in the backend, and he is on the screen where he is sharing the consent to be linking his bank account as well as the GST. So once he shares this account and authorizes to fetch his details, right?
Not the PAN, right? Before this.
Sorry?
Is the source
The
of
user
GST data from GSTN? Oh,
I would request all of you all to please keep your doubts for the end of the session. Let Pawan go through the entire flow and then we can go through the notes.
Yeah, definitely. We'll give a pause at the end to just deep dive on what exactly the doubts are and we'll address all of them. So basically what has happened here is the user has quickly moved from WhatsApp as a key or the hook towards a browser where he's sharing his consent for both a banking provider or a financial information provider from the banking end as well as the GST, where he is in a single consent, sharing consent for both of these FIPs and linking his accounts there. So I'll just quickly click on all of these, which is required by lender to underwrite a business to avail that loan or lending facility. Here, the OTP is from the Axis Bank or one of the FIPs, where he's linking his banking account and he is giving the consent. And he will have to add one more OTP, that is for GSTN, for both 1A and as well as 3B. Yeah, so here we can see that customer has completed the consent. He is now selecting the duration of the data that he is being sharing, both for bank account as well as GST. And once the customer approves the data sharing, he'll be basically taken back to WhatsApp with a redirect URL to continue the other process of the loan. So lending is not just about having the account aggregator or the financial information provider data set being availed. This can be one of the crucial piece or crucial elements of underwriting a customer, but there are a lot of steps involved in the entire journey. And what we are displaying today is an end-to-end journey on WhatsApp for underwriting a customer or lending to him. Just give me a moment until the screen loads.
Pawan, there has been some requests to just quickly go through the earlier screens. I think some people missed it.
Can I come back again, Ruchi, once I'll just complete it? Would that be okay? Or do you want me to go back?
That's fine. That's fine.
I'll come back once again if that's the case.
No problem.
So we have already fetched the details of customers PAN through the bank account details, which are available in the bank account details being pushed by FIP to the lender. We are just confirming it to double check or double cross check with the borrower whether it says PAN and things are details are correct, which are provided. Once the customer clicks on confirm and proceeds, right, we do a bureau check as well to understand what is this lending pattern, borrowing pattern, how exactly the bureau records this credit history. Once the customer confirms to that, we do an OTP verification with the bureau and we float him an offer that according to his eligibility and credibility, customer can choose to have any range between the floated range. Let's say the customer says that he wants a 5 lakh rupee loan. So we will take that ask him for the duration between 12 month and 24 month. Let's say customer says 12 month. We show him what is the final loan offer. This can be a PDF as well. We give him an entire request parameter saying that this is the loan amount, this is the duration, what is the interest rate. And once the customer confirms on it, we basically do a bank on verification to understand where the disbursement needs to happen. This is also one of the flows that Setu has quickly solved. And all the customer needs to do is quickly do a 1 rupee transaction through his bank account, and his bank account would be verified. We do a quick Aadhaar verification as well, where the customer enters Aadhaar number, a security code, OTP from UIDI, and a quick passcode. And once Aadhaar is verified, an end-to-end lending journey almost is done here. So we are verifying customers' bureau, we are verifying customers' Aadhaar, we are verifying customers' bank, we are underwriting him through data through GST. We are verifying and underwriting him based on bank details. So complete data scheme has been already received by bank. And all the thing needs to do is confirmation from the end user for his address and as well as sign the loan agreement for final disbursal to happen. So here the user is quickly entering his Aadhaar details to do an Aadhaar based e-sign, which is one of the best ways to underwrite a customer and as well as understand how exactly the loan agreement is being signed between the lender and the user. And once the OTP is verified, the loan offer is floated and the loan has been sanctioned and the amount has been transferred to customer's bank account. So within a duration of 1 month, 1 minute to 10 minutes, we are actually able to float a loan for a business while going through everything and underwriting him. So this is from the lens of a user to understand how exactly he can onboard a customer or sanction a loan to him. Let's also look at the place, how exactly a lender from his lens is looking through the process. What is the details he is gaining and how exactly he is underwriting it. I'll quickly move the tab to my colleague Ron, who would take you through the lender's lens of the same lens. Just give us a minute.
Hey folks, can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes.
Okay, great. So thanks, Pavan. Glad to be here. Good evening, everyone. I'll quickly jump into the output that we get from the analysis, right? So like Pavan had shared, we primarily get our data sources from 4 points. One is, of course, your GST, one is your bank statement, another is the bureau, and then you have other, right? So what we do here, if you guys can see my screen, is we look at the underwriting point of view here, right? So you can imagine that there is someone at the credit team of a lender who's looking at this profile. So before underwriting to this particular SME borrower, what they would want to know first is the KYC details. So after we pull the name from all these different sources, we do something like a name match or a name mapping, where we are able to identify if the name that we get from all these different sources actually matches each other, right? So that is the number one check that we do. Then we also do a similar sort of matching for the address, so that the address that we get from different sources are all verified. Since we also get data sourced from the bureau, we are able to see what the bureau's response is. So in this case, maybe if you're using CIBIL, we look at CIBIL data and then we say, okay, the CIBIL score of this user is so and so. There were DPD bounces, DPD days, all these information that would be relevant to a user, we are getting through CIBIL. Right, so that's the first step. Second, we move on to the average EOD balance. So this again, like Shalini was saying earlier and how Pavan had mentioned as well, what we're doing is we are merging different data sources to give a holistic look into the customer's financial profile. Because after working with lenders and speaking to them on this, it's very clear that they don't use just GST data to underwrite a customer, right? At the end of the day, what we need to do is we need to get a clear picture of the financial status of the user. So in that case, what we're doing is we pull all this data, including bank and GST primarily, and then we mesh it together to sort of give a better picture. So here, average EOD balance is primarily taken from the bank account itself, the current bank account of the SME owner, and then that's how we populate the average EOD balances, which are useful to a lender. Then we look at fraud checks. So this is again a combination of bank statement and GST, where we look at check bounces, if there is an immediate debit after a spike in the cash flow, right? And that we can analyze through the sales returns from the GST statement itself. Large cash transactions, any checks for fraud or behavioral trends, we sort of look at that. Then we move on to the top 5 credit transactions and the top 5 debit transactions. So this is just to get a good idea of where the, if you look at the credit transactions, firstly we'll get to see, okay, this person, their SME, this SME, their primary credit source is coming from cash flows. Maybe a secondary income could be investment income or rental income from this SME owner. So things like that we are able to quickly analyze with this sort of chart here. Similarly, for top 5 debits, we are able to see, okay, vendor payments is the a major payment that this SME owner is making. There's also cash withdrawals. There's also rent that this SME might be paying for keeping, let's say, the warehouses in place and things like that, right? Something special that we do on top of this is we try to map the all the GST transactions along with the bank statement transactions, right? So here we can see that 82% of the GST transactions and 54% of all debit transactions were recognized in the bank statement as well. So this gives like an idea of, okay, is this the actual account that this customer is using? If there's some sort of correlation there, right? So that is something that we do here. Then we move on to tax compliance. So this is pretty straightforward. We look at the filing dates for GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B, and we highlight cases that the months that they had not filed either of these two forms. Then we look at the sales versus purchase comparison. Again, sales data is something that we would get from GSTR1. Purchase data is something that currently we'll be getting through bank statements primarily, right? Once, as and when GSTR2A and 2B gets released on AA, we could probably take that input from there. But as of now, we are meshing both of these together to sort of give a sense of what the sales and purchase is looking like for this customer. Then we have something called the profitability analysis, right? So what we do here is we take the input tax credit as the primary source, and based on the payment of this, we are sort of estimating a probability as to whether they are profitable or not. So there's a low to high scale in which we place this particular customer over the series of the months that we have. Then we have the sales versus collections. Again, sales data is coming directly from GST. Collections data we'd be getting from the bank. So what this helps in doing is basically with the GST data, we can say, okay, sales over the months has been so and so, right? With the collections data that is actually coming into the bank, we can say that, okay, maybe this person has made sales of, let's say, 5 lakhs in the next in 1 2 months, but the collections that are coming into the bank as credits is actually just 1 to 2 lakhs. So we can see the sort of cyclicity of this customer here in getting the actual collections into the bank account, and we can find the variance there. So let's say there is a variance of greater than 30 40%. Maybe that's something that the underwriter should have a look at, maybe increase the interest rates based on that, right? So we can do all of that modifications based on whatever BRE logic, business rule engine logic that they have set up at their end. So here there's a variance of 14% between the sales and collections data that we have. Then you have your sales by state, which you can get from the GSTN, the counterparty GSTN number. By identifying that, we can also figure out which state they belong to. So here it's clear that Kerala and Karnataka contribute to most of the sales of this particular SME. Similarly, sales by type, again, this is coming from the GST data where we can see the split between exports without payment, exports with payment, B2C large transactions, and B2B. Then you have finally your top 10 customers and top 10 vendors, right? So top 10 customers we get from the GST data. Again, based on the GSTN number that we are able to identify from the counterparty, we are able to extract that entity and accumulate the values of all those transactions. For top 10 vendors, we look at the bank statement data. What we do with the bank statement data is basically, let's say there are 500 transactions in the bank statement data for this date range. We extract all the entities found in all those transactions. We look at trends, we look at patterns, and we say, okay, for example, Raja General Stores was the primary vendor based on the amount details, based on the date, and things like that. So this is the sort of new way in which we are planning to help lenders underwrite, right? And This is just sort of a snapshot of the output that we get currently with GST plus bank statement data.
One thing to just add on to what Ron mentioned, right? We have traditionally always seen that GST as a source of information or data and bank statement as a source of information or data have been looked independently. But from a lender's lens for underwriting, right, there needs to be an amalgamation of these two data sources and a cumulative score needs to be identified. So Setu has been working on that, on how exactly we can make sure that a right score or a right metric is given to every borrower to have facilitate this credit underwriting or lending being done for him. So all the data that you're seeing on screen is something which is amalgamated between two FIPs, one being the banking source and one being the GST, and it gives a right comparison of the data between the two sources. May it be a GST uh, invoice being raised to an end customer, but maybe he's not receiving the invoice. We are able to catch that and flag it to the lender so the right underwriting can be made to him. Any questions?
Is someone speaking? They're not audible.
There are some questions on the in the chat box, Pavan and Ron.
Yeah, let's just go through those.
So I'll tell you. Yeah. So after this info at Samati, this could you some of the people could not see when the PAN was entered. Some screens
Sure.
initially in the phone, the WhatsApp screen were I think some people couldn't see it. So if you can just show that once.
Sure. We can take people through the consent screen, but we'll just take the questions first and we'll go back because we'll have to wind the demo from the start. So we'll just do it at the
Okay.
end.
So you can start. You'll be able to see the questions here. Are there
Question
two
here.
OTPs? Do you see this? Axis Bank and GSTN triggered in parallel.
Yes. Both Axis Bank and GST OTPs would be required for anyone to be entering into the ecosystem. And these would be not parallelly triggered or simultaneously triggered. We do it.
Yes, Satish, you're trying to ask something?
I'm sorry, it was an accident.
No problem. So we do something called a sequential OTP triggering. May it be for only banks as well, where multiple banks are being linked, or may it be between two FIPs, between GST and banks. We do a sequential OTP triggering. That means that banking OTP would be triggered first, and once that is entered, we trigger the OTP for GSTN, and then the customer can enter them accordingly. So that is something that we have already taken care. Next question. Displaying of the financial data. I think so. Vishal had asked this. Yeah, the output that we showed on the GST was the representation of the financial data.
So what platform is being shown currently? From where? From WhatsApp? Where does it redirect when we press share
So
consent?
I'll answer that question. We are not able to embed the AE consent flow on a journey like WhatsApp. So we use WhatsApp as a hook to start the journey or acquire the customer. And wherever it is required, we pass him to a third-party browser like a Chrome or a Safari, based on the availability on phone. And he does necessary actions on a browser, may it be verifying his Aadhaar for an Aadhaar verification, or may it be for a consent flow like A, he would be doing it on a browser, or may it be for signing an agreement using Aadhaar-based e-sign. All these three activities happen on a third-party browser. When at the end of the journey on the third-party browser, we have made sure that he's taken back to the WhatsApp as a platform to have the conversation continued and the journey being all right there.
Yeah, just to add on, right? So what we've seen is using WhatsApp as your sort of hook or your start of the loan journey has led to 4 to 5x more conversions when you compare it with the normal bank app, right? And the primary reason for that is the notification feature for WhatsApp, where you can keep pinging the customer. Everyone has WhatsApp, all of those reasons, right? So that's why we sort of go with the WhatsApp flow to start with. And when it comes to the consent journey, we redirect them to a
web page, basically
web page
third-party
which
web
shows
browser.
the flow there, the consent flow, and then we take them back to the WhatsApp flow.
Okay. Next question.
Is only one. So recording will be shared, Swati, in a couple of days. There's only
Multiple
one.
can be used or not. Okay. So we have no limitation as such. It depends upon the risk appetite of lender, what kind of lender he is, and what do they want to do. We are happy to have multiple bureaus in place to pass the information and fetch from them.
Yeah, again, very lender specific. So with some banks, we've seen them use a couple of bureaus like Experian and Sibyl to underwrite. For some, we just see Sibyl. So it depends on the lender on how they want to do it. We can obviously support different data types or bureaus to sort of underwrite this and arrive at an analysis.
What kind of score is this? To be very honest, if you see our demo, we do not have any score right now. We are working with multiple CAs and multiple lenders to actually arrive at a conclusion on what the score should be an amalgamation. Probably in like upcoming weeks or months, we should have this in place. Right now, we are relying upon bureau as a score as a metric, but we have ambitions to have our own score, which would be amalgamation of all the three actually.
Yeah. Also on the fraud part, so what we had discussed earlier was the KYC aspects, right? So what we do is we look at all the data sources and then we see if things are actually mapping out, things like name, address, other details to sort of figure out if there's actually any sort of fraud or chance of fraud happening.
How is the fraud score at application level computed? Yeah, it's the same question.
Yeah.
Where is the analytics visible?
So
I'll just take this question, where
Yeah,
this
sure.
analytics will be visible. This is a very good question. Why we separated the two flows from each other? What Ron presented to you, which was a list of graphs and flowcharts, was something a lender's lens. This would be a desktop view, which would be accessible through a dashboard for the lender. For him to do the backend underwriting, this can be an API integrated to a BRE as well, where it automatically happens that based on few metrics or the results of what customer is entering into the bot, the BRE makes its decision to either accept the user or reject the user. But essentially, that would be a desktop view on the lender side.
Yeah. On the WhatsApp journey that was shown, is this an offering by Setu? Yeah. So we do WhatsApp lending journeys for lenders currently. So this is something that Setu offers as a product. Is the
Achieve compliance with the lenders that we show the accounts and the consent which is taken on the lender's application. As a customer is not going to any of the customer is going to do one of the he has to go through account aggregator flows to provide consent. And once we provide the consent and authorization, then only the access of data would be made.
Yeah. On Apuv's question on won't the data be masked? No. So neither the bank statement data nor the GST data would be masked. We would be getting access to all the transaction data of in the bank statement and the GST form that is provided. So using that is how we are currently able to analyze these top vendors and top customers. Do you guys
I
also
could not see any selfie being taken in the journey. So what if someone who has access of phone taking the lending? Fair. Based on the lender's risk appetite and lender's request to the BRE or what data needs to be pushed, modifications can be done to the same journey, where a selfie verification can be incorporated in it. So this was one of our lender partners who had no request as such presently. So we have not done that yet.
It's also dependent on the ticket sizes,
Type
right?
of the loan.
If it's a small personal loan of, let's say, 5,000 rupees, maybe they don't require a selfie. But if it's a higher loan amount, maybe they do. So depending on what the lender's risk appetite is, we sort of can incorporate that in the journey. Will the customers be directed to the AA page for consent and account discovery? Yeah. So that is what we're doing currently, where the start of the journey, we ask them basic details on WhatsApp and then move them to the consent flow, which is a redirection that we have, right? So they would be redirected to the AA page. Once they give consent, they would be redirected back to the WhatsApp flow to finish the rest of the journey.
I think so. We are at the end of the questions. I think so. There were a lot of requests to replay the demo. What we have something special at the end. So we have embedded that same journey which we displayed right in through this QR code. You guys can scan this QR code and have the journey on your phones. More than happy. I think so. That would be a better way rather than we going back and displaying and have other time being consumed there. So we'd request you to just scan this QR code and go through the journey on your phones, so that you can try it out yourself.
Yep. And if you have any questions or any queries and you want to connect afterwards, please send us a mail at a@setu.co. More than happy to help out.
The email in the chat box, right, Ron? In the
yeah.
chat box, just write the email ID.
Sure.
Where they can connect with you. So you had this QR code at the end, Pawan. That's why you were not showing the screen. So I now thought you saved the best for the last.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure we don't waste a lot of time and also concisely cover everything that we have. So more than happy to show the video, but I think so this would be a better journey so that you can have a real feel of how exactly things work.
Perfect, perfect. So bang on time. Thank you so much. And to all the audiences who are watching them, please reach out. They've typed in the email ID and reach out to them for any demonstrations, any discussions further on. Thanks, Pawan. Thanks, Ron, for your time.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Ruchi. Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
So moving on to the second presenter now. Pawan, would you like to stop sharing your screen? Pawan, can you hear me? Okay. All right. So I think one of us needs to get in touch with Pawan and ask him to stop sharing his screen. Okay. In the meantime, can I get Chaitanya to come on screen? Chaitanya from Finbox. We move on to the next presentation from Finbox, again on a solution that they have created using GST data in the account aggregator framework. Chaitanya is also the product manager at head of product, sorry, at Finbox, and he will be running us through his solutions today. So over to you, Chaitanya. Anything you need, please reach out.
Hi everyone. Just give me a couple of minutes to share my screen and then we'll get started.
Your screen is visible, Chaitanya. You have to unmute yourself, Chaitanya. Unmute.
Okay, thank you everyone for staying back on a Friday evening to see our presentation and understand what we have built. Also, thank you to Samati for organizing this and giving us this platform to showcase our solution. So quickly diving into it, we call our solution as GST Connect. And the focus will be on MSME lending. So I think the first slide wanted to talk a bit about different use cases which AA has enabled. I think won't spend too much time on this. We've already spoken. Abhishek has covered some of this. I think one of the biggest use cases, as we saw in Abhishek's presentation, was also related to lending, and the most interesting aspect of it is business lending, which is based on cash flow, etc., which was being done using GST, but the entire flow was very cumbersome in terms of how the GST data is shared with the lender, etc., which is now changed with the account aggregator solution that we have. So diving straight into the solution that we have. So here's a journey that the customer would complete. The way our solution is designed is it's an SDK, which is easy to integrate into any lender application, and will pick up the GST details where, at the right point, and pick up all the details and share it with the lender. So this is where, we'll start off with the GST part of it. There are two solutions that I will talk about. One is GST alone, and GST and bank and other solutions put together. Because we've seen some lenders also do GST alone lending as well in their flows. So we'll talk about that as well. So let's go through the journey. I will pause through the journey at the relevant spots and talk through what data is being collected, how we are going about it. So this is the first screen, start off with the phone number and the PAN details. This first OTP is sort of a login into Finbu, which is the account aggregator, and and verifying the phone number. The discovery of the GST accounts which are linked to the phone number and PAN don't require any OTP, and you can see all the GST numbers which are available to be linked. Then once the account is linked, the consent parameters are shown with all the details, when it is requested, for how long, all of these details. And then the verification, the linking using the OTP is done, followed by the consent also, which is included into one step to make it seamless. So you can see the entire journey would be barely a few seconds in which the GST data can be shared with the lender through this journey. Now, this is the customer side of what the customer journey looks like. Next, we will go into what can be done using this data. So we've actually broken it into two parts, what can be done using the GST data. One is, STP, a straight through processing journey, where all of these details are fed into a business rule engine. And predictors can be built, which can be used into the which can be fed into the business rule engine and can be used for straight through processing of MSME loans, especially small ticket MSME loans. And then there is the second part where this can also be used for a manual underwriting with a detailed, sort of CAM report or Excel report of sorts. So firstly, coming to the predictors and features which can be built using the GST data. Most of this will be available with what is shared already based on the schema that we have seen. Some of these are also based on which is expected to come, the GST 2A, the unmasking, all of these things. So broadly, we classify the predictors that you would get from GST into four pillars. The first is the monetary and financial pillar, where you would be able to see the gross turnover. This is an important predictor which will go into your BRE to decide on the max eligible loan amount, max EMI, all of these. Tax paid, outward taxable supplies, which is proxy for the gross turnover, etc. And the inward tax supplies. Now, inward tax supplies are not currently available as per GST 2A. When it will be available, inward tax supplies will also be available. Then there is a way to estimate the inward tax applied from the inward tax credit as well, which you can use as a proxy for some estimate of what the inward or what the purchases could be. So this is the entire monetary and financial insights that you can create. The second is a very important pillar that we frequently use in our scores that we build, and also the other predictors we give with a lot of our other products, is the entire piece on conscientiousness, which sort of links with the willingness to pay and shows the customers conscientiousness to pay on time, all of these parts. So here you can see all predictors which are linked to that. You'll see penalty paid, late returns filed, days of delay, interest paid, late fees paid, all of these details which you get from the GSTR 3B, where all the summary details are available, can be used to build a conscientiousness map for the customer. The next is related to stability of the customer, and you'll see sort of number of clients they have, whether there is a single party transaction which you are seeing a lot. For all of these, you would require the unmasked GST, which is not available right now, but as has been discussed, will be made available, and there is discussions, etc. Concentration within a state, distribution of state, etc. So this is all around the stability and wallet share. And then finally, you can come to affordability metrics. Affordability and eligibility, evaluate the max EMI, max loan amount using 1, 2, and 3 to build the other predictors that you have. So this is the set of sort of straight through processing predictors that you can use based on GST for the lending loan decision, etc. Now, for manual underwriting, typically underwriters would also have a second manual check, or use a heavily underwriting, which is not straight through processing, manual in process, and would require a GST report, which is built on top of all the GST data which is available. So this is sort of the summary. And we have a detailed Excel, which also I will be sharing. So let me just stop sharing my screen and show the detailed Excel report that can be generated using the GST data, which is available. I'll just stop sharing this and share the Excel data that we have. Yeah. So this is the Excel sort of report which will be available for underwriters. And here you can see, there is a quick summary starting with the gross turnover. This is one of the most important numbers that gives an indication of the size of the business. And this is available from the GSTR1 invoice data, etc. The next is the net turnover, which is the difference of the gross turnover and the GST paid. Then all the filings, number of filings, if the period and number of filings, there is a mismatch, this can be checked over here. Share of intrastate transactions versus interstate, etc. These are some of the important predictors that can be created. Median invoice amount, you can get a sense of whether this is a business which caters to small sort of customers or large, what is the average invoice amount. Net business income. So this is a sort of predictor that we built using only GST data, and this can also be built using GST plus bank data, which we'll talk about in the further part of the presentation. And this uses the gross income, some indicator if you are building it only using GST, using the inward tax credits, which gives an idea of what are the supplies that they are taking, margins that the customers would typically have, etc. in an industry. Based on this, there is a rough estimate of the monthly business that the customer gets. Late filings, which is important, and recurring monthly revenue. And this can be built. This is a very useful metric to see the stability in the business. You can look at recurring invoices that the customer is raising to their customers. So there are recurring invoices, same date, similar amounts, and in future, the same GST ID, which gives you an idea of what part of their business is a steady state, ongoing, recurring business, which gives you a very clear idea of what variations you can see in their revenue, etc. And then there is some insight on the inward tax closing balance, etc. Tax credits, etc. There is sales revenue, state revenue distribution, net eligible, etc. Tax payment, cash versus credit. And then this is a detailed Excel. I will not go over each of these tabs, but built specifically for lenders from their CAM perspective. You can see the business details. You can see monthly insights in terms of total invoice values by each month. What is, SGST, CGST, breakups, etc. And then in the 3B, you can see filing status, what was paid through cash, what was paid through credit, inward tax credit balances, etc. Outward supplies, how much is interstate, intrastate, state distribution, etc. Outward supply invoices, etc. So in the interest of time, I won't go into the detail, but a detailed profile of the business can be built for manual underwriting use cases also, which are not straight through processing. And in many places, there is a secondary check also based on, some other parameters. So a report like this can be built and will be useful for the lenders. Let me just stop sharing and go back to sharing my presentation. Okay. So we covered the GST-based journey and the insights that the lenders can be used for STP lending, for manual underwriting, and next we will look at a use case where GST and bank statement is used in conjunction. I'll just walk through the journey. The journey would take around 3 OTPs. The linking of the GST and the bank statement is kept separate. It can also be kept as an optional step, and the separation sort of gives clarity on what people are consenting to. So that's how we've built the journey. I'll just walk through the journey. Similar steps for GST, start by linking the PAN and phone number, OTP, consent for the GST details, consent parameters which are shown over here for one time, what period, all of these details are shown, and consent and verification on OTP, completing the GST process, and then going to the bank statement. So here the phone number is already available, and just just a step to continue for bank statement discovery. Here, based on the phone number, the bank accounts are discovered. The accounts to be linked are selected. Once again, a consent screen to show what the consent parameters are, etc., are shown. Along with the consent, there is the OTP for linking the account, and that should complete the journey. So even with two sort of FIPs and two sort of pillars of data being captured, the entire journey is hardly a few seconds to complete. Seamlessly, you collect both these data sets from the customer. Now, going to what can be built using this, Bank Connect plus GST Connect is what we call our bank statement analyzer and the GST analyzer, and you can add the mixture of bureau also into this. Now, the benefit of using different data sources, and you can build it using bank plus GST or bank plus GST and bureau, is how you can verify a certain data point across multiple sources. So for example, if you look at a P&L for the customer, for a business customer, you start with gross income, go to net business income, and then come to net income minus their lending obligations, and finally what their disposable income is. Now, all of these data points can be verified, got from each of the data sources and cross-verified. So let's go through each of these in detail. For example, the gross business income that you require can be get in a very good way from GST and verified by the bank. The benefit of GST versus bank for gross income is, in bank, multiple businesses use 2-3 bank statements, and their invoices and accounts receivable are split across different accounts. So getting a very good handle on the income from a single bank statement sometimes becomes difficult for businesses. So using GST for looking at the turnover data and cross-verifying it with the bank income data gives you a very good handle on the gross income. Next is the net business income, which is sort of the business income deducting the business debits, which would be all the purchases, etc. This can be done once GSTR 2A data is available. You can get the purchases data as well, and that can be built into the net business income. Till then, it can be got using the bank data that you have. And then you have the net income minus obligations, and the obligation data can be got ideally from bureau, but also verified by the bank statement data that you have. And finally, you can get the disposable income deducting for other business expenses, which you would typically find in the bank statement analysis. So basically, you're creating a complete financial profile of the customer, the sort of a pseudo P&L for the customer, using all these data sources, which can give a very clear picture to the lenders for lending. Finally, what additional things that a lender would be typically interested in looking for is stability during crisis, business cycles, or some outside events like COVID, etc. So stability during crisis, what diversification they have, and what consciousness do they show in terms of paying GST or their bills, etc. So all of these can be got through all these sources, multiple data sources. You can get loan DPDs, you can get recurrent revenue data from the recurring revenue data from the GST and the bank statement, like we said, looking at invoices which are repeat. You can look at the recent EMIs, bill bounces, what account balances do they have, growth in their business, growth in the invoice amounts, etc., late filing fees, etc., which would create additional idea about this customer on the elements around stability, etc. So this is how all of these data sources can be put together to build a financial picture of the customer. So I think want to keep some time for the questions. That's all that to share in terms of the presentation. Let me just stop sharing and see if there are any questions.
Chaitanya, there is one question. If you open the chat box, you'll be able. Where are we fetching bureau data in the journey?
Yeah, so I think I haven't shown the journey with bureau. So in this journey, there was no bureau, it was GST plus bank. But bureau can also be included in the journey as well.
Are you able to view the questions in the chat box, Chaitanya?
Yes, I can see it. So there is a question that I'm not seeing any redirection to the AA page where the account discovery and account consent will be done, or will we be able to do this on the lenders page instead? Because in your case, you're doing the consent and discovery in the same app. So our solution is built as an SDK, which will be embedded into the lenders application. We work with different account aggregator partners. If you saw the page that I showed, it showed with it showed the Finvu as the account aggregator partner. There are different account aggregator partners that we work with. So the consent page and discovery and the consent all are sort of driven by the account aggregator, but embedded into the SDK. So there is no redirection that you will see, but those pages or those screens are sort of are WebSockets which run with the account aggregators. Yeah, so I think the question is, can you share anything on the lender side of the journey? So the lender side of the journey, unfortunately, I don't have anything to share right now. The way our system is built is we also have the LOS or the loan origination system where all the details of the customers are shown in terms of all the predictors and Excel reports which are generated. I don't have that screen where the GST details, etc., are shown, but we can have a separate demo, individually if somebody is interested in looking at how it will be shown on the lenders LOS or dashboard solutions. And I think the question is, as we share the mobile number in case of bank statement data, we need to share PAN data in case. Yes. So I think the GST journey starts with the phone number and the PAN. I think the journey also showed the phone number and the PAN to start off with.
So Ruchi, I think there are no questions on the chat. So if we have time, we can maybe, if there are people who want to ask a question, we can just
Right.
and ask a question, else,
Else we wrap up. So we have about a few minutes left. If anybody has any questions they want to ask, you may unmute yourself and ask.
I'll be going off with you. Thank you. If there are any questions specific to Finbox or the demo we showed, I can take those.
Chaitanya, if you would be able to write in your email ID in the chat box, so people can reach out to you.
Yeah, hi, this is Shashwat here. I have got one question. Am I audible?
Yes, Shashwat. Who is the question for?
This is for the previous speaker or Ruchi. I mean, whoever is. Basically, this is for the concept where we are having single OTP dependence for both banking as well as GST account aggregation. Okay, how does a scenario impacts this when I have got a mobile number which is updated with the bank is different from what has been registered with GST. In such a scenario, will it work?
Yeah, so I can take that question, Shashwat. So what will happen is, one is, anyhow, if there are 2 or 3 FIPs involved in a journey where the customer needs to link 3 accounts from 3 different FIPs, there won't be a single OTP. So it has to be 3 OTPs. The second part of your question is that if there are different mobile numbers seeded in bank's account and the GST, then it has to be shared using two journeys. Basically, in the first journey, you will use your mobile number linked with the bank account and link your bank account, and then again you'll have to redo the journey by entering the mobile number which is seeded into your GSTN and do the linking. So it has to be 2 journeys that have to be done by the customer.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other question? I think
Okay, yeah, I guess
we're
we
well
are
in time. Good.
Friday evening.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you very much for everyone for attending this session. The recording will be available next week along with a short blog, so it will be available on our website and our YouTube channel. Of course, the TSPs have sent in their email IDs. You all can get in touch with them if you have any further questions for their solutions. Thank you once again, and please feel free to write to Sahamati for any more questions or doubts you may have. Next week, we have another session on depositories data on account aggregator. It's next Thursday. You would have got an invite. Most of you all would have got an invite yesterday. Please register yourselves for next Thursday to explore a new data type on account aggregator. And of course, new solutions that are available with technology providers. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend ahead. Thank you.